Tuesday in Melrose Mountain, Tryon, North Carolina. Higher ground is the place, and it's running about 60 degrees outside. Beautiful sunlight day, and looks like the leaves will be probably a week uh, older before they're at their peak. They're beautiful right now, but they're still not at their peak here, at least at Melrose Mountain. And so we're looking forward to the coming days when they're even going to be even more glorious. I want to continue along the line of thinking about James, the book of James, and his message about faith. The fact that he says that if you really want to prove your faith, there ought to be some works. Now, remember, that's not works to get into heaven. That's works as an outward evidence of an interchange of having faith. And James has already said to us that faith comes from knowledge of God. That builds on your faith through experiences and the proof of his trustworthiness as you go through experiences of life and his constant presence with us. And faith grows by asking for wisdom and discernment, and we should always do that, ask for wisdom and discernment from God. We learned that God doesn't tempt, Satan does, and we know that we need to be aware of our Adamic nature, that is our sinful nature. But today I want to talk to you about an area that you might not think about as being works, or you might not think about being something that proves your faith, and that's partiality. Partiality towards people that are different than you. Partiality that could be spoken of in the area of prejudices. Prejudice towards skin color, prejudice towards nation of origin, prejudice towards people who have no wealth, prejudice of people who have very little education, prejudice of people that are different than you. You see, James is pretty high on that. He says that's an area that you better really watch if you want to exercise the fact that you have faith. Then you need to be sure that your attitude is not one of favoritism. Favoritism to those that have financial means, favoritism towards those that have exceptional educations, or favoritism towards those that are just like you. And in chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, he really warns us about that favoritism. And he says it really amounts to prejudices against others. And in chapter 2, verses 8 through 11, he says, love your neighbors as yourself. Love somebody as much as you love yourself. Now, I read an interesting magazine this past week that I've passed on to another pastor, which talks about ethnic minorities. And in the next 2 decades, ethnic minorities will outnumber all of us that now are in the majority as Anglos. That is, ethnic minorities are coming into America and are so prevalent in America that in just 2 decades, just 20 years, they'll outnumber us. We'll be the minority rather than they being the minority. That's important to remember because I don't think we would want to be considered a minority. I don't think we want to be considered somebody that has to conform to their standards. Take Islam, for example. If Islam became a majority, would you want to be forced into Islamic beliefs, Islamic practices, Islamic laws? I don't think so. So we need to be careful about how we show our prejudices, and we need to be sure that we understand that America is a melting pot. And even though we say in our churches that we want a good cross culture of all of the cultures of America, if you walk into the average American church, you're going to find that they're predominantly black or predominantly white or predominantly Japanese or predominantly Korean, rather than being a cross culture. Will our divide become even greater because we're not worshiping together, because we've not sought to understand one another and love one another as our neighbors? I think so. I think it's a dangerous trend. I think we should do everything possible not to start ethnic works, but to bring ethnicity, cross-culture into the church so we start to understand each other. We start to build relationships with each other. Now, I'm not suggesting that we become Islamic. I'm saying under the cross of Christ, we should cross those cultures, not to water down Christianity. Finally, let me say to you in chapter 2, verse 9, it says that partiality is sin. Let me say it again, because it says it right in the scriptures. Partiality is sin. So if you find in your heart that you've been taught prejudices and hatreds and fear and all kinds of other bad feelings about minorities and about people that are different than we are, you might want to search your heart again in light of God's word. In the book of James, it says partiality is sin. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.